Adrian, where do you stand on the issue of measurement and metrics in marketing and management?
Well, part of the role of a consultant is research, and the default position of a researcher is, or at least should be, scepticism. So I'm a bit of a sceptic. When I see a market forecast or a market share estimate or an economic forecast that's got decimal points in it, I feel a bit sceptical.
So does that mean that you're anti-measurement and monitoring outcomes?
No, not at all. What it means is I think management should be continually asking itself, are we measuring the right thing? And is this particular measurement device or this particular form of measurement, is it actually valid? That's particularly true in marketing, because to be honest, in marketing we do sometimes dabble with some rather dubious metrics. But actually it can be true in financial management as well. You do need to be aware of an accounting fiction which arbitrarily allocates an overhead inappropriately and gives you a totally wrong overall picture. But KPIs are important in running any organisation, providing, first of all, they are appropriate, and secondly, that there aren't too many of them.
So KPIs tend to examine the business as a whole. Do you think outcomes of marketing activity or consultancy projects can be measured meaningfully? And is it too much of a cliche to say what gets measured gets done?
It's certainly a cliche, but like a lot of cliches, it does have a degree of truth in it. Sometimes a project can be very susceptible to measurement. If you achieve X, you've succeeded. If you only achieve Y, you failed. Sometimes it's not that binary.
So it isn't always that simple.
No, it's not. There are different sorts of outcomes at different stages in a project.
So like the goal of situation analysis, or the goal of problem definition, or the goal, once you've defined the problem, of designing the solution, or after that the goal of implementation, or after that the goal of monitoring.
Well, exactly that, yeah. And different people in different professions or different people in different sectors might use slightly different jargon, but those basic processes that you've outlined are going to be pretty similar.
So can you give me an example?
Yeah, when I worked in advertising, we sometimes did pre and post campaign research. And one example of that would be with a train operating company, or what used to be known as a TOC. We did a piece of research which identified that awareness and understanding of the client's service was quite low. That in itself was the outcome of a research process. We then had a campaign which involved 48 sheet posters, it involved local press, it even involved direct mail in the catchment area of the stations. And as a result of that, we found that awareness had gone up from something like 25% to something like 60%. So that in itself was the outcome of the advertising campaign, but that was dependent on the outcome of a research campaign before that.
And as a consultant, you don't actually create the advertising, do you?
Not usually, no. I mean, occasionally the odd bit of very technical copywriting, but more often I work with agencies and clients on developing and refining the creative brief, or sometimes in terms of testing product concepts or advertising concepts. So quite an interesting example of that recently was one with doctors. And I ran a series of focus groups with GPs where what we were doing was looking at a PowerPoint presentation aimed at doctors. And we got some very, very constructive feedback on that.
So can you describe the outcomes?
They were very actionable. We literally went through slide by slide and we were getting feedback like, that is a useful metaphor, that imagery works, that one less so. Don't say that to a doctor because you'll get right up the nose, it's actually insulting. So it was hugely productive in terms of understanding the target audience's reaction to the, in this case it wasn't actually advertising, it was a PowerPoint presentation, obviously the same principle. But beyond that, it gave us quite a lot of interesting feedback in terms of the doctor's reaction to the product concept itself.
And how would you put a value on that insight?
Yeah, I don't really think you could. It was certainly worth a lot more to the client than it cost to obtain the insights, but you couldn't actually put a pounds or dollars value on it.
That seems like a good point to close. Thank you very much, Adrian.